Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Grow Intentionally podcast. My name is Gina Hansen, and I'm a wellness and lifestyle design coach. Today, on our episode, we'll be talking about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. If you've ever felt scared or full of excuses, procrastination, and you just really want to do something, but you can't get yourself to do it, then this episode is for you. Today, I'm going to be introducing you to my coach, my friend, Thomas Kevin Dolan. I forgot Kekoa. Thomas Dolan Kekoa. Wait. Thomas Kevin Kekoa Dolan-Ma. That's him. And he is a professional master integrative coach. And I can't wait for you to meet him and get to know more about how he can help you become more courageous in your life, like he helped me. So back to my story of how I was introduced to coaching. Last year, I'm sure you also had a crazy year with the pandemic. 2020 was wild, and I had a bunch of things happen in my life in a short amount of time. In just 6 months' time, I had been diagnosed with papillary thyroid cancer. And then I had, just 4 days before that, I had asked my husband for a divorce. And then dealing with all of that, at the end of the summer, I took an early out retirement from a 28-year career as a flight attendant. And it was a job that I loved, and I let it go. And I didn't know what I was going to do after that. I really didn't have any plans, but I just knew it was an opportunity to take. There was a lot of decisions I had to make that required me to be courageous and to make decisions that were difficult and scary, to tell you the truth. I was in a funk, in a depression after all of those things happened. I was alone. And I would lay on the couch, and my son would walk in the door and goes, "Oh, you're in the couch again." And I spent a lot of time like that. And I had met Thomas through Facebook. And you know what? I was so blessed to be able to work with him as my first coach. And he opened so many doors of possibility for me. He gave me clarity, boosted my vision for my future, and really inspired me to reach like I'm doing today with this first episode of the podcast. We all need someone in our corner that's going to uplift us and give us the opportunity to step up in our lives. And so I welcome my guest. Maria is here. Thank you, Maria, for joining us today. We're just getting started, and I'm about to introduce Thomas. If you have any questions regarding fear, procrastination, doubt, self-doubt, all of those dark parts of ourselves that we like to avoid and stay safe, and if this is a time in your life that you'd like to be more courageous, then we're here to support you. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Thomas, who has over 16 years of experience as an integrative coach in the field of human shadow, relationships, courage, heart healing, and life remodeling. So here we go. Thanks for watching. Here we go. This is Thomas. Da-da-da.
Aloha, Gina.
Aloha.
It is so great to be here. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
I love this. So Thomas was here in Hawaii where we met in person, and now he's in Canada, in Vancouver. And
correct. And my husband and I will be back in Honolulu on May 21st. So we're jumping between two gorgeous places on this planet.
Yay. I love it. So Thomas, I really, really appreciate your taking your time to coach me all those months when I was in a dark space, and you brought my light back out. And I really appreciate that about you. And the opportunity to work one-on-one with a coach And especially in a time like that when you really feel alone and you don't know which way to turn. You're kind of spinning. I don't know if you've ever experienced that in your life. Have you?
Oh, absolutely, Gina. That's what actually brought me to this point where I could begin to do this work. I like you, had to make a choice to have a partner in my corner, an accountability partner, a coach, to actually, and remember this, I actually say, like, who's the only person you cannot see when you walk into a room?
Yourself. I love when you say that.
Correct. So not
Another
unlike you,
thing.
you were willing, yeah, you were willing to be able to say, yeah, gosh, can I have somebody in my corner, in my room, who can actually see who I'm being? Because that's one of the challenges for us. We can't see ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah, and I noticed the way that you would put questions to me, it really made me reflect on how I was showing up in my life and what kind of life I wanted to have in the future. So it was really important. I mean, I had not known what coaching was like, until you were my coach, and I realized that it's such a blessing to be able to help someone that who's not playing at their best top game.
Yes. I do. And to your credit, Gina, you had opened with this notion of things that I had actually led you to. And within the framework of integrative coaching is, as an accountability partner, as your coach. Like, we also stated this too, or it was part of our agreement when we did the work. It was actually a process that I had. It was a container that you could walk into. It was me choosing to be the reflection of who you were being. But ultimately, these were choices you made. So there was nothing that I had. I think I said to you, Gina, I have none of your answers. You possess all of them if you're willing to actually be open to some extraordinary questions, if you're willing to be open to a container that would help you move yourself forward. So I just want to make it clear to you and your listeners. So this is just a reminder for you, but ultimately,
Mhm.
I did nothing for you. You were the one that actually did the work. I simply reflected back to you who you were being, and you got to make a choice whether that would work for you or not work for you. And most times it wasn't working for you, and you were able to make a shift. So I just want to make sure that people understood that this isn't about Thomas, right? This is about Gina, who was willing to take a deep breath and realize you needed some support, kind of walk towards the invitation I extended to you, and you were the one that was willing to actually do the work. So I didn't want to confuse it, because oftentimes there's kind of two methods of coaching. And my initial training in coaching was to become the subject matter expert, and you would come to me for answers. And that didn't work for me, Gina, because it didn't reflect what it was I needed in my life in terms of my process. And ultimately, it didn't feel right that I would rob somebody of their ability to discover who they were. So when I switched to the integrative model, right, through the Ford Institute at the University of San Diego, it was an opportunity for me to actually create a way of being from a coaching perspective where I could invite you into a process that would have you be the one that would be seeking your answers. And it wouldn't be me providing you anything other than, at times, some really clear feedback. And of course, I remember also we had an agreement. I used this dynamic called ruthless compassion. Do you remember that? Yes, yeah. It was my way of gently saying to you, with your permission, right? You gave me permission when I asked you that. I said, Gina, I feel like with what we bumped up against, it might be an opportunity for me to actually kind of invoke this ruthless compassion. And really, it was just a spiritual way of saying, I'm going to call bullshit, Gina. And
Yeah.
you were comfortably uncomfortable with me doing that. That's what was so courageous in my experience of you. You were willing to say, yes, Thomas, that is bullshit. And let's dive underneath that and find what's really going on for you. And you did that countless times. And I think it brought you to the point where what you're able to create in your life now is really built on this foundation of a courage for yourself. So I acknowledge you again for being willing to do that.
Yes, Thomas, I know. One of my favorite moments in memories of working with you was one day when you called bullshit and you said, we're not going to continue. We're done for today. We're done. And I was like, what? What? You can't do that. But I was really in a funk, and you pulled the sheet out from under me and left me standing there like, holy shit, he can do that. He can tell me like, we're not coaching today. You need to think about this. You need to reflect on how you're acting here.
Well, and also remember, Gina, it was an opportunity to reflect back to who you were being. And then I gave you choice and said, based on my experience of who you're being, do you think that any level of coaching today would be worthwhile for you? And it was actually you who landed on, Actually, you're right. And you shared with me afterwards when we rolled back into that session a week or so later, that was exactly what you needed, huh?
Oh, totally what I needed. It was like a
Yeah.
slap on the face, like wake up. It was
And again,
exactly
and
what I
again,
needed.
yeah, and it was you finding what you needed. Like you were okay with me stopping. Again, it wasn't me knowing what was going on for you, but with 16 years of coaching experience, I get to the point where I realized it didn't really matter what we were going to talk about that day. What was probably best for you was for you just to sit in your own stuff and us to be able to come back. And of course, when we came back, we were able to address what was there for you. And I think in my experience, you really were able to move through, right? You were able to move through. You got clear about what that was. And of course, if we'd done it during that time, I think it might have been a bit of a waste of time.
So true. It was perfect timing for me to get that shift in there. And yeah, I totally appreciate that. That was courageous on your part to be able to draw the line in the sand and say, which side are you standing on? Are you standing for yourself? Or, are you going to take the fear card and stay safe? Right?
Yes. Well, again, it was that day, and like every day, Gina, we're confronted with hundreds of choices, right? That we either make us feel empowered or confident or strong, or actually we allow them to rob us of the thing that we most want. And you're right. I love your analogy. It's actually choosing. And it's sometimes hard to hear that we're making a choice to choose fear, but I think you're exactly right. And the cool thing is that you got to notice, right? You got to notice Gina was choosing the fear card, which is a really powerful place to come from, because ultimately what prevents us, right, from making that powerful choice is fear, all right, or this repressed self-confidence, or this untapped courage, or an obstacle or an excuse that we say is between us and our best interests. And ultimately, on that particular day, you were willing to say, right, it is a good idea, Thomas, that we stop, because I'm actually choosing something that isn't in my best interest. And that is the best place you can come from in relation to discovering what it is that probably has been there for a long period of time, but for some reason on that particular day, you were willing to stop, take some time to reflect. And when we came back, it was really clear for you what it was that caused that obstacle for you, which is really, really brilliant on your part.
Right. And I have to say that what you had said earlier, it was really about me doing the work and wanting to do that, because, I actually at one point I felt like I was forced to do it because I didn't have a career. I didn't know what I was going to do, and then there was all this grief around letting things die and grow. I mean, and letting them go, like letting my career go, letting my husband go and all of that. And then stepping into this feeling of being alone and like, what now? It's just me, and what do I want to do with my life? And so that was like a huge moment for me to like, either I'm going to stay in that gloom and doom and hold on to the past, or I'm going to step into it and say, what kind of future do I want to have?
And because you were brave enough to sit with what it is you didn't know, right? So you knew things that you had, and ultimately, and I use this analogy all the time, and within the framework of this materialistic culture that we've created, it's certainly not necessarily one that I buy into, but people will say to me, I've got all these things and I want to make room for new things. And I say to them, here's the analogy. You've got 15 beautiful coats in your closet, and you say to me, Thomas, I want another coat. And I say to you, is there room in that closet for you? And you say, well, no, I've got a closet full of coats. And the question is really simplistic. So I say, so what's the next step? You want a new coat, you've got a closet full of coats. What intuitively is the best thing for you to do? And oftentimes, because when that question was posed to me, where I had this intention to kind of clear out my life, but I realized, wow, there was a lot of stuff inside my life, so there wasn't a lot of room for anything new to come in. When my coach asked me that question, I was a little bit stymied. I didn't know what the answer was. And ultimately, that was okay. Not knowing is okay. But when I landed on realizing that the key would be a willingness to acknowledge the closet that's stuffed with stuff, in this particular case, coats, would I be willing to take a couple of the coats out, let them go, and by creating room for next to show up, even just energetically, it would give an opportunity for that next thing in my life to actually show up because I made room for it. And what you chose to do, Gina, which I thought was brilliant, you were sitting with some monumental loss in your life. You'd made some really great choices. And although at the time, I'm sure they didn't feel energetically or emotionally great, but you sat with this notion of, wow, I've got this stuff, but I've this new vision. Either I'm walking towards this new vision or it's walking towards me. But you got to notice the choice you had. And the choice was this: do I let go of that to make room for the new, or do I hang on to it and somehow try and cram this new into an already stuffed closet? And ultimately, what was the choice you made?
Had to let it go, to stop dwelling on it.
Well, the neat thing is you didn't have to let it go. You made a choice to let it go.
Right. And then when I did that, I realized in my pulling myself out of this hole that I could help other people do the same thing. I didn't know that until I got out of the hole. Then I looked back and I was like, God, there's a lot of other people in the hole. And so I could lend a hand out. And so that's what inspired me to start helping my coworkers, because I realized how attached not only I was, but my friends were to their identity, being in the airline industry for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Yes. A lot of my friends spent their life in their career, and that's who they saw themselves as. And when they left, even if they chose to leave, like I chose to leave, it was hard for them to let it go. And so a lot of them are still having trouble with that. And so for me, being able to see how I got myself out and to be able to offer that to other people has been just a blessing, again, not only for myself, but you shine the light on me, I shine the light out for everyone else. And it's just this wonderful ripple effect that we can all help change.
And of course, you're right, Gina, and the premise. And oftentimes, I've had some extraordinary teachers in my life and some really amazing mentors in my life, particularly when it comes to this coaching profession. But when I began, I looked towards my first coach as this person that would actually give me all the answers. And of course, the foundation and the formation of this work is through a woman by the name of Debbie Ford. And when I talked to Debbie about being my coach, Debbie said to me, why, Thomas, why do you want me to coach you? And of course, I said quite quickly, right, being what I thought was a great client and having the right answer, which isn't necessarily always the best thing to do. But I said to Debbie, I want you to be my guru. And she stopped. There was a silence. And I always got uncomfortable when Debbie created silence, because it meant I had to sit in my shit, right? So I said to her, yeah, I want you to be my guru. And she was quiet. And then what she did, she energetically pointed. She said, Thomas, if you want me to be your guru, she said, there's the door. She said, I have no interest in being your guru. She said, if you want to be your guru, she said, I'll support you in doing that. She said, that's what I'm trained in doing. She said, I've done my work already, right? I don't need anybody to treat me like a guru. She said, but if you want to create that in your life, she said, I'm happy to work with you. And I sat uncomfortable for a period of time, because here's what she was saying. She was saying, and I think in the same way I said to you, Gina, you could be this in your life if you were willing to actually make that choice. If all you wanted was for me to tell you what to do, it just wouldn't work. It doesn't work that way. And of course, I eventually made the choice to actually become that for myself. And it isn't necessarily a guru. I made a choice, like you made a choice, to actually say kind of yes to this little nudge from God, who said, Thomas, there's some stuff that if you could understand what it was, if you could even identify what it was, and if you were brave enough to help somebody help you clear it out, you could then begin to move more awake in your life and begin to create the things that you really need to create. And the cool thing, Gina, and what I'm appreciating about what it is that you're doing in terms of contribution back to the world, notice the formula is this. Gina must do her work first. Thomas must do his work first. And once we've done that work, and once we're clearer about who it is that we want to be in the world, and then yes, we've got to be in action to create that. That's certainly part of it. It is only then we can turn to somebody else and be able to say, how can I serve you? And sometimes the challenge in the coaching profession is that folks choose to do the work without doing the work. And that can be to the detriment of somebody who's in a similar position as you were months and months ago, similar to a position I was in years and years ago, where ultimately we come at more egotistic we kind of scratch the surface, get more surface, not do the work, and then we think we can turn around and help somebody else. And of course, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It is a deeper dive. You did a deep dive, Gina, into Gina to discover what was there for yourself. And what I loved watching from session to session working with you is you got better at being able to pull back and look at who you were being, clearly identify who that was for you. And if you weren't sure who that was, you could ask for support. I could ask you some great questions. You got really clear, and then suddenly you realize, wow, this version of myself is actually not going to get me. It's not going to help me move towards the vision I have for myself. So you made a choice, and you could choose to change who you were being energetically and then put yourself back on the path of moving yourself forward. So would it be true, Gina, that your ability to actually support other people is really in line with how it is that you best support yourself?
Totally true.
Yeah, and that's integrative work, right? That's what I do. I simply work with folks to help them identify what parts of them are they not willing to embrace. What parts of them are they pretending don't exist by laying something over top of it? And I'll use the example for me. Up until the age of 29, right, I was in the closet. I didn't want anybody to know that I was gay. So instead of doing that work to better understand who I was, I hid myself even deeper. I hid behind a Catholic church. I hid behind a marriage to a woman. And I eventually got to the point where I realized, wow, and I had a beautiful example from an older brother who actually took his last breath. And when I looked at Rick's story and what it meant to me, he chose to be really brave. And up until that point in life, I wasn't being really brave. So I used courage to actually come out, and then I would eventually be able to learn like you did what all myself was. And of course, the fun part of it today, because I learned to love my gay self, which is a small part of my expression in this life, instead of hate that part of me, I was then able to lean to all the strengths I have. And now today I get to show up as authentically as I possibly can. And I don't even remember how I pretended not to be who I was. I don't remember what it was like to actually pretend to be quote unquote straight. And that's this work. You got so clear about who you wanted to be. And when we do, right, when we get really clear with God or the universe or the divine, notice the myriad of doors that began to, well, actually, no. Notice the doors you began to open for yourself when you got really clear. That's integrative work. That's coaching work, because you were willing for what it is you identified. It might not have been clear. I think I helped you get clear on some things. And then you allowed yourself to actually begin to love the parts of yourself that you either hid from you or hid from the world. And once you could love those parts of yourself and fully integrate them, because we are the divine and we are the diabolical, our work is to make sure that those two parts of us simply continue to exchange notes so that we can actually grow. So to your credit, you were willing to get clear on what it is that you wanted, and you got really good at noticing who you were being. You kind of rose like 100 feet above yourself and noticed who you were being, and asked yourself, is that going to move me towards the thing that I most want to be in the world? I just think that's so extraordinary, right? That's kind of integrative work in a nutshell. And you chose you, and not that you weren't choosing the responsibilities you had. I mean, particularly with a son and some of the financial responsibilities you had. But notice the clarity you got around the things that were in your way. And then once we know what they are, we can actually begin to move them. And that's where a coach and accountability partner can really help you, because, again, sometimes you can't see them, right?
Exactly. You cannot see them. You cannot see. Thank you for being my other eyes in my life. Really.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome. And at times when you weren't able to see, perhaps I posed a question that could clear it for you. And if it wasn't a question, it was an opportunity just for us to halt that coaching train, for you to take a breath. Because ultimately, the thing we most need is usually right here. It's right underneath our nose. And if we egotistically think we've got to figure it out, as opposed to tapping into, right, that intuition, that divine, that voice of God in us, and listen to it, because it's always right. I mean, would it be fair to ask, Gina, for 100% of the things that you allowed God to whisper through you and you listened to them, what percentage of them were true for you?
What percentage of what God was telling me?
Yeah.
God is always telling me the truth. It's up to me to listen.
Yeah, it's up to you to listen. And when you allow the ego, right, that beautiful intellectual mind, because there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a matter of learning how to discern Am I being run by my ego, or am I being run by the intuitive voice of God, the divine? And ultimately, what's a better way to move through life? Yeah. I am constantly reminding myself, listen to that whisper within, Thomas. It's always, and it's not an of the world right. It always serves me, but I've got to choose it, right? I've got to open the door, right? Because what I learned a long time ago was this thing called free will. The analogy I used as a little boy was a door, right? On one side of the door was me, and there was a handle on the door, Gina. On the other side of the door was God, but there was no handle on the door that God was on. I had the free will to open the door, right, to my intuition, to the divine, to the whispers, to the things that I knew was best. I had to open the door. It couldn't be opened from the other side. That's the gift of free will for us. And ultimately, I witnessed you open the door to you so many times, because as a coach, I couldn't do that, right? Nor would I want to do that. It wasn't my job to open your door. It was your door. And you consistently, you constantly, and you congruently opened it for yourself. And it was amazing what I witnessed you discover about you. That's the power of coaching.
Yes.
Yes.
It's magical. Push that door open and get it.
Push that door. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. And sometimes it's a gentle, just kind of creak it open a little bit. But the point is just, you've got to be the one who's willing to open the door. Nobody can do that for you.
Totally. Yes. I appreciate you, Thomas. And
thank you, Gina.
What a great start to my Grow Intentionally podcast. You are an awesome person, man, leader. And I would love for my friends to connect with you. So I'm going to drop a link so that people can connect with you. I put it in the comments. And you're offering a free session to get started, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Just like I did with you, right? It's an opportunity for them to kind of walk in and for me to sit with them and get a sense of how it is I can best support them. And ultimately, right, I'll turn back to them and say, how's the best way to support yourself? That's really what it's about. So absolutely, it would be a joy to spend an hour or maybe more with some of your folks to explore how it is that they can best support themselves with an accountability partner or a coach. Absolutely. That's a big yes from me.
Yay. So with that, I am going to let all my friends know he is amazing. If you haven't already known that, haven't heard that, you want a spotlight on your life, he will be your second, third, fourth eyes. He's watching. He's watching you, and will definitely lead you in the right direction to your highest self. So thanks for being here, Thomas.
My pleasure, Gina. My pleasure. What a joy. Thank you for the invitation. Honored and humbled. And I trust that this podcast series will be, what a great launching point. And thank you for allowing me to be part of it. A big aloha from here.
Yes. Aloha, everyone. And remember, it's your choice to have the life that you like to have. Make a decision and choose you. Choose to be your happiest self. And that's what's meant to be. Have a great day. Aloha.